It's morphin' time!
Hello, this is Soundout here, and welcome to the Power Rangers Lightning Collection Rundown for 2020. Now, this was an interesting year because this was our second year of the line, and there was a lot of expansion, a lot of change, and a lot of upgrade. There was also a lot of downsides at the same time. This was one of those weird years where it's like, okay, we're getting vehicles, we're getting monsters, there's more villains, we're getting army builder packs, there's all these great things, but then there's also like, everyone's Psycho Rangers have inconsistent paint, and then Mighty Morphin Black doesn't have the same belt paint as the rest of the team, and Dino Charge Black has a issue with his belts, and Thunder White shipped without the paint on his helmet, and they had to do a replacement program. Yeah, there was a few QC problems and some really weird choices. That being said, as the year went on, things got more interesting because we started the year with kind of like, all right, here's some more of what you expect. And as we went on, there was some things like, hey, here's our first Rita Repulsa figure in this scale. Here is, a vehicle with the Omega Rangers Uniforce cycle, sorry. Stuff like that just kind of came out of nowhere. It's like, oh, hey, here we're doing Zordon. Here we're doing a Psycho Ranger 5-pack. And then everyone was like, why are we having to buy red and blue again? And it's like, logistics of the things. We'll talk about them when we talk about the actual figures. But it kind of started standard, and then it got really experimental, and then it went, like, back to standard. Like, I think Wave 7 was pretty much like, oh, hey, here's just, like, little sprinklings of things. And then it finished off the year with 2 deluxe monster figures and 2 2-packs that said to me, like, whoa, hey, this is new and exciting. So I kind of feel like the year as a whole was a little weak in a lot of ways, but was really strong in others. Like we're getting a lot of variety of product, which is great, like different types of figures. But then also we had like, weird QC problems, but then distribution was pretty solid. I think that for the most part, every figure was relatively available and easy to get. Online exclusives restocked a lot. Even the Target exclusive figure was fairly easy to get. And that is something that I gotta say, doesn't happen with any other line from Hasbro. I've talked about Marvel Legends, and I've talked about G.I. Joe Classified a lot on this channel, and about how their distribution issues kind of take the fun out of it. Whereas with Power Rangers, the fun only got taken out with, like, oh, hey, this figure's almost perfect, but it's missing the paint on his helmet. And that was the only thing that was holding it back. Because availability was good, character selection and variety is good, figures are solid, they're still really solid, but then there's some things like, oh, hey, we got Ranger Slayer, except she has no balance because for some reason in this line, every female character just falls over super easy. So it's things like that that kind of took away a little bit, but at the same time, it was fun to collect. I got every figure I wanted. There was a total of 38 figures released this year. I got 36 of them. We'll talk about the 2 I didn't get and why when we get there. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't too hard to collect. It was fun. It kept things interesting. It came out at a nice pace to where we didn't get overloaded. I think August got a little jam-packed because there was like 2 Amazon exclusives and a Hasbro Pulse exclusive and a Wave, like all dropped at once. But other than that, that was still like, I think 8 figures, 10 figures maybe. As opposed to Marvel Legends, when they do that, it's like 30 figures and you're like, well, how do I buy this? Or it's G.I. Joe and it's like, oh, dang, they're already gone. But anyways, I think you get my point, is that collecting Power Rangers was easy. Most of the figures were good. And that's why I think this video will be a little shorter. And I don't mean for this to be shorter than McFarlane or G.I. Joe or Marvel Legends. Marvel Legends is just a lot of product. This is like a line that's consistently good. And so there's very few figures that actually rate super low. And pretty much everybody else is pretty solid. Like, for the most part, it is Power Rangers. The nature of Power Rangers is to have 2 body molds for a team and then reuse that for the whole team, because that's the way that Power Rangers is done. It's not like every character is going to get a unique mold. Pretty much the villains is where that comes in. So that's kind of the summary of the year. It was solid, and I gotta appreciate that. So for those that aren't familiar with my rundown format, this is my 4th video in 2021 talking about 2020. And essentially what I do is I go through every figure released, regardless if I own it or not, and I take a look at each of them. So if I own the figure, I'll put it on a rating of 1 to 5, and if I don't own the figure, I'll talk about why I don't own it, and just kind of generally just put it down for the record and move along. Like I said, there was only 2 figures I skipped this year, and because of that, this should be a pretty intense look. Now, there are some of these figures I did review earlier last year, and there's a playlist that'll be linked around the video somewhere for my Lightning Collection videos. So take a look at that if you want a detailed look at some of those figures. But otherwise, it's not going to be like a full-on, you know, encompassing review of everything. It's going to be kind of like a, hey, here's the figure, here's good and bad, and here's my score. And then we kind of move along. So yeah, it's kind of a good way to look back and reflect at the previous year of product. Everything included in this is everything from Wave, I believe it's Wave 4 through the Versus 2-packs, because those did get to most retailers before the end of the year. And so that's going to be everything in between there. And we'll go through all that. We'll do the regular retail waves first, then the exclusives, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Now, the rating scale, I do rate the figures on a 1 to 5 scale, with 1 being garbage, 2 being underwhelming, 3 being could have been better, could have been worse, 4 being everything I expected, and 5 being everything I wanted and more. So that's just kind of the general rating scale. It's not to say that a figure that I rank a 2 is necessarily a bad figure, it's that it was underwhelming compared to what I expected from the line. And you may end up seeing a lot of 4s and 3s on the list because a lot of these figures use similar molds. So there's that going on. There is at least 1 figure that I rated a 1, so stay tuned for that. At the end of the video, we will do a top 10 of the year and close it all out. So I hope you enjoy. Let's begin. Before we begin, I do want to say that when it comes to the line, QC problems don't factor into my scores. That is something that happens on a production level, but is not intended by design. Therefore, it just doesn't factor into my scores. However, universal problems such as paint inconsistencies, for example, there are characters where one member of the team has one belt color and one member of the team has another belt color. For example, Mighty Morphin's a little bit inconsistent all over the board, Dino Charge as well. That kind of stuff is kind of a problem. If it's going to be one way, it's got to be one way, not 6 different ways. And generally speaking, doing photo accuracy stuff, am I looking at every single little detail? No. As long as it's giving the appearance of the character, then that's going to factor into the score. There is one universal problem with this line, and it's this. The female figures of this line, all of them, have the balance of somebody that was recently run over by 3 trucks. So keep that in mind. I'm not going to mention each time because it's a universal problem. But the ankle joints or something with the balance on the female characters, just, they topple like nobody's business. Just a slight breeze, they're over. It's done. And that is unfortunate because it's hard to pose the female characters that we did get in any poses because they tend to just do that. Another universal problem with the line is a lot of the weapon handles are painted, and a lot of Rangers have white gloves. So this is Dino Charge Red, who was last year. He's not in this video. But you can see how all that black paint came from the handle of his sword. That's like the worst case of it, but it's something that's still happening because here's a Zeo Blue where you can see the paint is rubbing off. And it's not even sticking to the glove anymore, it's just tearing the paint off of the weapon. Which is a bummer because, yeah, they're really nicely painted, but there needs to be some extra coating or something so that the hands aren't stripping the paint away from the accessories. Kicking off Wave 4 is Mighty Morphin Yellow. Now this is, of course, Trini from original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Very essential character and a very good figure overall. I feel like it's a big step up from Mighty Morphin Pink from the previous year, and I definitely really like the figure. Did do a full review of this one before, but I'm going to give her a 4 out of 5. Next up we have Zeo Ranger 3 Blue. Now this figure is awful, and I don't mean that lightly. This is just one of the most unpleasant experiences. We're far enough into this line that a basic Ranger should not be this bad, but we have weapons that have paint scraping all over the place when you're using them in the holsters, weapon that doesn't fit in the holster, doesn't include the power tonfas, the effect part he comes with doesn't fit anywhere on the figure, and the civilian head absolutely does not look like the actor 100%. It's not even anywhere close. 1 out of 5. Next up, SPD Red Ranger. Now this is a really good figure. I'm actually pretty impressed with him overall. He's got a pretty good civilian head sculpt, has both guns, effect part works well, and honestly, no real complaints. I'm going to give this one a 4 out of 5. Our last figure, Wave 4, is Cybervillain Blaze. This is one of my favorite figures of the year,
excellent accuracy to the costume, great details. He has the weapon, he has an episode-specific accessory in the form of the Morph X computer, and the civilian head sculpt is like the actor walked out of the screen and became an action figure. Absolutely impressive, 5 out of 5. Kicking off Wave 5 is the Mighty Morphin Blue Ranger. Pretty good figure overall, though there was some kind of letdowns here and there. For example, I don't think the unmasked head worked as well with the glasses being a separate piece. Kind of would have liked them sculpted in, similar to other Hasbro figures like the Ghostbusters Egon. And the helmet sculpt is a little off. But that being said, he still has his staff in 2 different forms. Effect the part that works, so I'm going to overall give him a 4 out of 5. Next up is Ranger Slayer from the comics, a figure I really wanted in the line, and she turned out pretty good. Pretty much the only thing I could take against the figure is female ankle syndrome. She just doesn't have the balance that she should because of the way the joints are designed. But other than that, great sculpt, great articulation for the most part, and accessories work great, so 4 out of 5. Next up, we have the first figure I skipped, the Zeo Gold Ranger with a Treya Triforia head. I like this variant. It's a great way to get Zeo Gold out of a Comic-Con exclusive 2-pack and into retail, and he's pretty cool overall. That being said, I have the Comic-Con 2-pack, and I don't display my Rangers with civilian heads, so I didn't need to get them. Rounding out Wave 5 is the Time Force Red Ranger. This is a pretty solid figure overall. He uses a different torso than we've seen, which is kind of giving some variety to the line, which I appreciate. Head sculpt is pretty good, all things considered. And weapons are very nice, if a little loose in his hands. I think his hands need to be molded a bit tighter or the handles molded a bit thicker. The fact he comes with a Chrono Blaster is a huge thing I didn't expect, so I'm going to give him a 4 out of 5. Starting off Wave 6 is Mighty Morphin Black. Now this is my favorite Mighty Morphin suit, and I gotta say that it turned out pretty okay. A lot of what we had seen in this figure we'd seen elsewhere with the Armored Black Ranger and other figures. And the Zack head sculpt's really, really bad. But the biggest fault is the gold buckle. He has gold instead of red, and it just throws off the look, and it's not consistent with the other Rangers, so 3 out of 5. Next up, we have Goldar, this time without his wings, but in a new paint scheme, and with a bigger sword. This is absolutely an improvement over the previous one. If any of you remember my review of the GameStop Exclusive Goldar, mine wasn't even assembled correctly, his knees weren't fully attached. This is just such an upgrade. And the pegs on the back can be pulled out, so you can plug in the wings if you do have the GameStop one. So a total upgrade, great figure, 5 out of 5. Next up, Zeo Ranger 5 Red. This is another Tommy of the year. Honestly, a complete turnaround improvement from Zeo Blue. Because with Blue, we had this problem of lack of personal weapon. Well, that was corrected. We had a problem of a head that looked nothing like the actor. This one's not great, but it's at least better. It's still got the Power Pod sword not having a collapse mode issue, but other than that, a complete turnaround for Zeo, and it seems to be continuing to Zeo Green this way, so I'm very glad to see they turned around. 4 out of 5. Rounding out the wave is In Space Yellow, our first Space Ranger, and this is a really nice figure. The only thing I can take points off for is the head sculpt. The civilian head just looks awful, and there's just so many bad civilian heads this year that I question why we even still have them. That being said, an accessory of a personal weapon with an effect specific to it. I love that. Very cool. Not really missing anything too major, and pretty solid figure even with female ankle syndrome problem, so 4 out of 5. Kicking off Wave 7 is the Mighty Morphin Green Ranger. This is specifically Tommy from Green with Evil because of the new civilian head, which honestly is probably the best Tommy head we've gotten so far. Definitely an improvement over the others. I love that he still comes with the Sword of Darkness, and while it's a lot of reuse from the Fighting Spirit Green Ranger, it looks nice, and I like having it in the normal colors. The only thing is the head sculpt's still a little off, mostly because of the visor line missing, and the diamonds under the chest aren't fully painted, but you can't see them, so it's not really too bad. I'm going to give him a 4 out of 5. Next up is the Z Putty Patroller, a great classic variant of the putty, and I really like this one enough that I bought it twice. I love the effect parts with it, with the exploding effect and the punch effect. Lots of great variety. Totally blew me away, honestly. I'm pretty impressed, especially considering I thought that putties weren't going to get more exciting than the previous release, but yeah, 5 out of 5, no complaints here. Rounding out the wave is Dino Thunder Red. Now this is a figure that I would normally take points off of for having a really terrible human head sculpt. However, the fact he includes a Tyrannostaff, his blaster sword in both forms, a brand new effect part that no other figure has, and extra hands on top of that, I really have no complaints. Yeah, the staff could be painted a little bit more, but painted handles has been a problem in this line, so I don't mind it. Absolutely a 5 out of 5. That head sculpt does not drag him down, and that is really impressive. Starting off the subset of monster figures that do cost 30 instead of 20, we have King Sphinx. Now this figure is absolutely the wrong scale, and I can't deny that. That being said, he's absolutely amazing. I love this figure. He's big, he's beefy, he's chunky. He's way too big. He makes Goldar look like a shrimp, but as a figure, I love it. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. The scale issue is the only problem, and honestly, it's something I kind of ignored already. It just looks impressive, it feels impressive, it's amazing. Our other monster this year is Pumpkin Wrapper, probably my favorite of the Mighty Morphin monsters, and this is probably the coolest figure he could have ever gotten. It's the only one he's ever had. Multiple vine accessories, great effects. The pumpkins can swap onto the head sockets of the Rangers to give a diorama display. I mean, I can't say anything bad about this. This is amazing, and his scale being a little taller isn't too far off when you look at some of the promotional images. So overall, I'm going to give him a 5 out of 5. Starting off the retail versus 2-packs, we do have the Red Space Ranger. This is a very good rendition of Andros, and a pretty good civilian head sculpt. This is more of what I was expecting of the line, and less so than what we saw with, like, Ashley. He's got a spiral saber, he's got his blaster, he's got a couple extra hands that allow for, different poses specific to episodes, and I really appreciate that. So overall, I'm going to give this figure a 4 out of 5. Paired up with Andros is Astronema. This is the first action figure for Astronema, and Hasbro knocked it out of the park. Head sculpt is great, the hair looks awesome, the paint job is really well done, and I love the fact she has the boomerang. It's such a unknown thing she has. It's mostly the staff that you always see her with, but great figure. You can even remove the chest armor if you want. I hope you see more variants of her down the line. Absolutely a 5 out of 5. Kicking off our next 2-pack is the SPD B Squad Blue Ranger, who is awesome. I really was pretty impressed with this guy. I thought he'd be similar to SPD Red, but he actually surprised me. I love the fact he's got 2 different forms of the baton, so you can have the sniper rifle mode of his weapon combination in addition to the baton mode. Really cool stuff. And the head sculpt looks like the actor, so what can I say? 4 out of 5. Coming bundled with the B Squad Blue Ranger is the A Squad Blue Ranger. Didn't expect us to see A Squad, especially this early in the line. I love that Hasbro's tackling it. They never got toys. They're like the Psycho Rangers. Never had toys until now, and I'm glad to see it. There are some inaccuracies in the paint detailing, especially with the helmet, and he has trouble holding the gun because of the way the handle's designed. But other than that, it's still a 4 out of 5. It's more than I expected. I thought, he'd be a little bit more generic, but actually they knocked it out of the park here. Kicking off our Amazon exclusives is the SPD Omega Ranger and his Uniforce Cycle. This is our first vehicle of the line, and it's pretty unique and interesting. Simpler one to do, of course, for a price budget, which is good for this line, but I like it. The Omega Ranger himself also comes with cool effect parts, extra hands. He even comes with a containment card. Really cool. However, he is missing some paint accuracies. Specifically, the number on his chest is a little too large, and his body type is kind of weird. But overall, I'm going to give the set a 4 out of 5. Starting off the Psycho Ranger 5-pack, we have Psycho Red. I'm going to spend this time not talking about Psycho Red. I reviewed him a year ago, but the fact we had to rebuy Psycho Red and Blue in order to get the rest of the Psychos. This felt like kind of a jerk move. It happens a lot in the industry. It's totally understandable. I hope it doesn't happen again, because between Psycho Red and Blue and Zed getting repacked and not really updated too much, Zed did get an update. Psycho Red and Psycho Blue just have brighter colors. I feel like we should be getting some more differences if we're going to be repacking. So when it comes to Red and comes to Blue, I'm giving them the same scores I would have given them before, which is a 4 out of 5. Solid figures, good likenesses, and yeah, design-wise, they're pretty dang accurate. Getting into the new Psychos, we have Psycho Black. Pretty much the same figure as Red and Blue. There is no mold changes between them. There is a missing paint app on this figure that I wish we had, which was the white line around the helmet. I think it gave him a lot of distinctiveness. But overall, you look at this, you're not going to think about it unless you're really, really looking for these really nitpicky details. And honestly, hey, his staff looks good, and that's pretty much all there is to him. 4 out of 5. Hasbro did what Bandai didn't, which is make the female Psycho Rangers, specifically Psycho Yellow here. Pretty solid overall. Female ankle syndrome is in place. The ankles just don't have enough adjustment ability, so they have a tendency to fall over. And there was some QC problems. But taking that out of the factor, still a 4 out of 5. Pretty much what I expected, and it's just nice to have a Psycho Yellow. Lastly for this pack is Psycho Pink. Now Psycho Pink doesn't come with the Savage Sword, though I personally think they're going to be doing a battle damage version with the Psycho Sword later on in the line. It's just kind of how this goes. But honestly, still a solid figure. Same mold as Yellow. Same ankle problem that all the women characters in this line have. So, 4 out of 5. A GameStop exclusive 2-pack of Rita Repulse and Lord Zed came out this year, giving us our first proper Rita action figure in a large scale. And overall, yeah, I like it. The dress could be a lot bigger and poofier, but I know soft goods is tricky. I'm glad it is soft goods, so she's not just a traffic cone. And I like the accessories. The cake and all that is pretty cool. They did say this is a specific silver outlined version for this anniversary pack, so I expect to see a later one in the line, maybe with a different head sculpt. But overall, 4 out of 5. Packed in with her is Lord Zed. Now this is mostly the Lord Zed from Wave 1 with a couple minor tweaks. Namely, they flipped the point on his staff to face the other direction, and they painted his fingernails silver, which is really nice. This is honestly the ultimate version of Lord Zed. I really, wish they would have done this the first time, but I understand that sometimes that's just not how the industry works. A lot of times with 2-packs, you got to have that one figure that's mostly reused, so you can have that one figure that's brand new. But overall, this Zed's a 5 out of 5. Hasbro Pulse got quite a few exclusives this year, including Psycho Green. Psycho Green comes from the comics and has only been in like 2 comics, so this really is an appropriate thing for a Hasbro Pulse exclusive. And it's nice to have him. I like having this figure. It wasn't too hard to get at the time. I was able to pre-order him easily as opposed to Bandai's, which was a Comic-Con exclusive. Only one new part on this guy, and that being the dagger, and it's rendered nicely, so, of course, 4 out of 5. The other thing from Hasbro Pulse that was a big deal was the Putty Patroller 2-pack. I hope they restock this more, because it does seem like it's been hard to get, but it is 2 variations of the Putty, which is different chest paint than the Fighting Spirit Green Ranger 2-pack from the previous year, so I like to see that. The effect part with the explosion debuted here before going over to the Z-Putty, but overall, you get 2 putties for $30, which is a pretty good deal. This set's a 5 out of 5. The next Hasbro Pulse exclusive was possibly a Power Morphicon or San Diego Comic-Con exclusive that moved to Hasbro Pulse when those events didn't happen in 2020, and it's Lord Draken Evolution 3. This is from a variant cover of Shattered Grid and about like 1 or 2 panels and a flashback dream sequence. This is not a look that was used a lot. It definitely existed, but for the $50 price it was going for, I just didn't feel like it was worth it. Last Hasbro Pulse exclusive is Metallic Armor Pink Ranger. This is a great way for us to get a cat head without buying the same Pink Ranger we already have. And I think that's a good way to do the rest of the replacement Mighty Morphin Rangers, which I'm sure they'll do. I love the metallic effect being clear plastic with sparkle flakes inside of it. Gives it a nice vibe, and I like the Zeo Crystal. It gives it an exclusive accessory, in addition to all the ones that the Pink Ranger normally comes with. So overall, gets a 5 out of 5 because it overcomes the problems of the previous version of the release. Next up is our one and only Target exclusive, that is the Dino Charge Black Ranger. Exclusives can be a good way, I think, to get more Rangers and teams, especially with a team as big as Dino Charge. Honestly, great figure. Already taken the great Dino Charge Red mold, and just giving it the Dino Charge Black treatment. The only problem really is the inconsistency of the paint on the buckle, but overall, great head sculpt, brand new effect part is awesome, and was fairly easy to find at retail, unlike some G.I. Joe Target exclusives, so I'm going to give him a 4 out of 5. The Walgreens exclusive Dino Thunder White Ranger shipped without the paint around the visor on the helmet. However, Hasbro offered replacements as part of a program without you having to pay any extra money, which was really nice. They fixed the only problem with the figure. Great civilian head sculpt, great effect part, great weapon detail, painted everything. It looks amazing. Absolutely a 5 out of 5 and one of my favorite figures of the year, and his only problem was solved with a replacement plan. So good job, Hasbro. I'm glad that they're paying attention to replace major mistakes like this. Last figure we're talking about today is the Alpha 5 and Zordon 2-pack, which was exclusive to Walmart. This set was $30, and it could have been upcharged more, and I was glad the price was low. The light-up Zordon's pretty cool, and the Alpha's pretty articulated. And he comes with a little teddy bear that he had in the first episode, so kind of neat stuff. It's a neat thing if you want this, but not something necessary. It makes the perfect exclusive. And it was fairly available, but other than that, it's a 3 out of 5. It's a head in a jar and a robot buddy. What more was I looking for? So here's all the figures of 2020 for Power Rangers Lightning Collections. This is all of year 2, and wow, did they expand. There's a lot more variety, different types of items. It's really cool. Even with the gigantic monsters, they still look cool back there. I think they work nicely as backdrop pieces. Having Zordon, the Omega Ranger's bike, a lot of Disney characters, a lot of other non-Mighty Morphin Saban characters. This is quite the variety. It is still a little Mighty Morphin heavy, I will admit that, but I think it's a good balance. About half the line's Mighty Morphin, about half the line is other stuff. And honestly, I'm pretty good with that. It's, keeps the line going. While Mighty Morphin is still always going to be the most popular season at this point, we're still getting a lot of other variety. Like the fact that all these exist is pretty dang cool. So overall, I think a pretty solid year for variety and a lot of experimentation that I think we're starting to sort of get over. I think we're getting into the territory of this design team knows what they're doing now. At least I hope so. Going over team updates this year, this is anything that got teams added to or created a team of 2 or more figures. We have Mighty Morphin, which now has completed its core roster by adding green, blue, black, and yellow. This is pretty nice to see, and yeah, core Mighty Morphin is done. Now they can re-release these figures just as repacks, because they're all retail releases, which makes things easier. We also got the boost of Alpha and Zordon, kind of putting together a more complete team than usual, which is nice. Well, not a team technically. Rita's Monster Forces and Zed Monster Forces got a huge boost this year with 2 Monsters of the Week, a couple different foot soldiers, plus a nice new Goldar and a nice new Rita and a nice new Zed. Wow, everything I'm showing you in front of you came out this year. So even the Goldar, the Zed, and the Putty, they got redone significantly better. So yeah, quite a few villains. I don't mind if this is how we get Mighty Morphin stuff is through villains, because I will buy Mighty Morphin villains all the time because we never got any for so long. It's kind of nice to see. The Zeo Rangers are about halfway done. We're still missing green, pink, and yellow, but green has already been announced, so they are moving along quickly, and we should see the rest of it done by next year, which is great. The only thing is we need those power Tonfas from somebody at some point. Weapons pack, whatever. We need Rocky's Tonfas. It's going to throw off the whole look with everyone else having their weapons. Next up is In Space, which started this year. We already got 2 members of, which is a good start. One was in a 2-pack, one was at retail, so hopefully it's not too much of a scavenger hunt for the team. But yeah, really glad we already got 2. We just need something to do about them female ankles. See how Andros doesn't fall over when I bump the table? Our next team is Dino Thunder. This started this year, and we're 2/5 of the way done. Yeah, we just need blue, black, and yellow, and blue has already been announced. This is really nice to see. We're kind of moving along through the teams pretty quick. Now, of course, one was retail, one was exclusive, and that is, I think, just how we're going to have to do it, because I know that they can't bog down the line entirely with too many of the same team, because there's a need for retail variety and marketing. There's all kinds of things involved, but I'm glad we already got 2 of them, and they both have their personal weapons, and the next one does too. So outside of inconsistent paint across the line, this is going along really well. Next up is SPD. Now, normally when we have 4 out of a team, it means we're almost done. There's like 1 or 2 left. With SPD, it's quite a much bigger team. So we're still looking for yellow, pink, and green for the main team, which pink's already been announced for Wave 8. Wonderful. And then Cat Ranger and Nova Ranger to finish out the extra heroes for the team. So we're moving along at a pretty good pace. In fact, we got 4 within 2 years. Pretty good. And yeah, looking forward to more. We may have only added 1 Dino Charge Ranger this year, but it was a really good one. So we have Dino Charge Black to go with red and gold. There are still like 7 more Rangers, maybe 8 if they want to make the male Purple Ranger. So this might be a long haul on the release schedule, but hey, at least we're getting them. Top 10 list real quick. Personal favorites here, no other requirements. Number 10, Zeo Red. Number 9, Dino Thunder Red. Number 8, SPD Blue. Number 7, SPD Omega. Number 6, Goldar. Number 5, Pumpkin Wrapper. Number 4, Blaze. Number 3, Astronema. Number 2, Dino Charge Black. And number 1, Dino Thunder White.
So I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, please leave a like, subscribe, hit the notification bell to keep up with future uploads. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what was your favorite Lightning Collection figure of the year and which one you want to see Hasbro tackle next. Personally speaking, I am still looking for more comic-based figures because I love the comics, specifically Omega Rangers, and I'd even take Solar Rangers because their designs are really cool and interesting. And if you enjoyed content like this, stay tuned because I will be doing more in the future. I don't have exact plans of what's coming up next, as I was just trying to get through rundowns. So if you missed G.I. Joe, Marvel Legends, or DC Multiverse, check those out. The links will be in and around the video or on my channel. Also be sure to check out my graphic designer, Darkclaw, on Twitter at Darkclaw643. He is awesome. He does all the graphics for the channel. And check out Hero Club at hero-club.com for all of your Power Rangers news, interviews, and more. And until next time, this is Soundout saying goodbye.